Okay, Boker Tov. Today's stuff is Chavtet. We pick up at the bottom of Kafchet Amud Bet, and we have now done a transition from Sotah to Tuma, which somewhat interestingly Tuma is going to be the focus of today's stuff, not so much because of the link of Sotah to Tuma, but because our mission of this parak had a whole series of drashot of Bo B'Yom Darsh Rabbi Akiva, and some of the initial ones had to do with Tuma, so we will see about that. But anyway, the initial connection had been that Sotah, we learn out from it the principle of if she goes into seclusion, she is presumed to be Tme'ah. The halacha is that a Sotah she's Vadai Aser based on the suffix. And as Tosfos, until that gets clarified with the water, once it's gone through the formal procedure. And as Tosfos points out, that means that even if it retroactively turns out that she had not committed adultery, or she knows she hasn't committed adultery, if nevertheless she violates that status of Tumah, like she said with her husband, they transgress, because right now her status is definitely Aser based on the suffix. It's not just suffix Aser. So from that we learned out the principle of suffix Tumah b'Reshut HaYachid. Again, this interesting now transition from the phrase Tumah by Sotah, which has its own specific set of meanings, to the idea of Tumah in other places in the Torah. And the idea also that the parameters are now just very much the formal aspects of it's a Reshut HaYachid, Yesh Bo Dat Lisha'el, etc. So Tosfos' first point, by the way, just to round us what we said yesterday, was he says, I don't understand. The reason she's usher by the Sotah is because there's Raglayim L'Dafar. In the case of a Tumah, it's like a 50-50 doubt, whereas the and Tosfos' idea that actually the kinui and the stira just make it 50-50. Don't make it more likely than not. But without the kinui and stira, it wouldn't even really be considered a suffix. So that's an important way about thinking about Sotah, which we have not really focused on until now.
You know, the Torah really presents it as if it is a fair competition.
Well, no, the Torah presents it that the husband is jealous. So the Mishnah more presents it like a complete. All right, that's his jealousy. I don't think that's. I don't think it's fair to say from the Torah perspective. The Mishnah presents it like he's definitely guilty. Anyway, and then we had a brief discussion. We did not go into the Tosfos that Reshut HaYachid clear also doesn't really mean Reshut HaYachid like it does by Shabbos. It has more to do with a private location. And the other interesting halacha is it's something to Reshut HaYachid. And the other point that Gemara made is only if is somebody that's Yesh Bo Dat Lisha'el. It's not just like you don't know if a frog hopped on a loaf of bread and nobody else was around. That would be Ein Bo Dat Lisha'el. It has to be like, or there's an infant. There has to be a case like a Sotah that there's somebody there who in theory could ask about what the circumstances were. And as I explained, my theory about that was that one way of understanding why it's Vadai Tameh because of the suffix is that making things Vadai Tameh until it's clarified. Okay, it's a little unfair for the woman, or a lot unfair for the woman, this presumption of guilt. But anyway, that sort of forces maybe people with information, hopefully can force things to clarify themselves. People to come forward, people to remember, so that only is helpful if there is somebody there that might actually know something. So it's only suffix Tumah b'Reshut HaYachid when there's Yesh Bo Dat Lisha'el. Okay, so that's where we left off in the Gemara. So now let's reread that from 4 lines from the top, and then we'll transition to the new topic. Umikan, so 4 lines from the top on Kafchet Amud Bet. Umikan Amru, from here they said, if there was somebody present who could be asked about it, doesn't mean he knew or she knew, whatever, but the theory could be asked, and it's in a private domain, and there's a doubt if Tumah touched something, it's Tameh. B'Reshut HaRabim, if it's in a public domain, tahur. And if nobody is there who can be asked, either way we assume it is tahor. So you need the combination of factors, Yesh Bo Dat Lisha'el and Reshut HaYachid, to say Sveikot Tameh. Okay, so that was the end of yesterday. Now, the Gemara, if you remember, also we learned out 3 things from Nitmi'ah, Asr the Baal, and she cannot eat Truma, which means A, if she's married to a Kohen, she can't eat Truma because the adultery or the suspected adultery compromises her marriage. But B, even if she's not married to a Kohen, she's a Bas Kohen, she can't eat Truma because this act would also seem to it would invalidate her. And from that, Rabbi Yishmael responded to Rabbi Akiva and says, so I'll learn a Kal V'chomer, therefore that she also is forbidden to marry a Kohen. Because there are women who are forbidden to marry a Kohen who can eat Truma. So if this woman who cannot eat Truma, then how much more so should she be forbidden to marry a Kohen? Meaning, assuming that her husband right now dies and she's an almana. Nevertheless, the fact that she has committed adultery makes her forbidden not just l'baal or l'boel or suspected of committing adultery, also makes her asur l'kohen.
Who can eat Truma and not marry a Kohen?
A grusha who is a daughter of a Kohen. Okay.
And so no one would say this would make her a zona, which you wouldn't be allowed to marry a Kohen anyway?
That's presumably what Rabbi Yishmael is saying. Okay, but how do we know that? That's where we know this from. Rabbi Yishmael, Amar Rabbi Akiva. So now, as far as Rabbi Yishmael is concerned, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Truma, Mahadule Iu Kahuna. Rabbi Akiva said, oh, she's usher in Truma. And Rabbi Yishmael says, well, why don't you just learn that I'll make a couple chomer that she's usher in Kahuna. So who says that Rabbi Akiva did? I mean, it sounded like he was arguing with Rabbi Akiva, but who said Rabbi Akiva was arguing? Really, he's just adding to what Rabbi Akiva said. So the Gemara says, V'sun, in addition, let's say Rabbi Akiva, if Rabbi Akiva doesn't have Rabbi Yishmael's Kavachomer, Rabbi Akiva, Kahuna Minole. Where does Rabbi Akiva know this idea of kahuna from? Okay, does he agree with Rabbi Yishmael that you learn it from a kavachomer? Maybe he feels, I don't need a pasuk for kahuna. Why don't I need a pasuk to tell me that she's usher for a kohen? Top of Chaf Termud Aleph. Sharei, here you go, what Michael said. Asabas Savik Zona Kazona. Since she's presumed, a Sotah is presumed to have committed adultery until we clarify it. That's also Safek Kavadai. So maybe Rabbi Akiva just assumes a woman who commits adultery, it's not just Asur L'Bal Asur L'Bo, that would give her status of a Zona. And if that would give her a status of a Zona, and she now is a Safek having done it, so the whole halach of Safek Kavadai, we would treat her like a Zona. So from there you could figure out that she's Asur L'Kuna, so we don't need a pasuk. Okay? So that's true. So Trumanami Loti Baikra. Then why does he need a pasuk to tell me that she's also betruma? Presumably, the status of zona would equally defile her from eating truma. How do you know? Because the pasuk says, now that literally means that she's married to another man, and therefore she's no longer part of the Kohen's household. However, Rabbi Akiva could darshan it, and he does darshan it. I don't want to explain why now, based on other sugyas. That kitia means if she has sex with another man, and each zar, a man that she is forbidden to have sex with, not just a non-Kohen. And therefore, that would defile her from Truma. So once you would say that we don't need a pasuk because, of course, a woman who commits adultery would be a zona, and that would be Asur B'Kahuna. So, okay, so make her also Asur B'Truma. Why do you need a pasuk of Nitma'ah to tell you that? So basically, why does he need a pasuk to tell me she's Asur B'Truma and not Kahuna? Where does he learn Kahuna from? So the Gemara says, Elafine. Rabbi Akiva Arba Krai Ksiva. There are 4 psukim. Now, what are the 4 psukim? It says nitma'ah 3 times, but one of the 3 times it says vinitma'ah. Okay, once it says v'hi nitma'ah, I forget the exact psukim. Anyway, one of them says vinitma'ah, the 8 ein ba. So remember, Rabbi Akiva learns from the extra vavs. So you have 3 nitma'ahs plus 1 vav. That's 4 things that you can learn out. Okay, Arba Kraiksiv, Chad L'Baal, one that she's forbidden to the Baal, Chad L'Boa, one to the Baal, Chad L'Kahuna, one that maybe the idea that she is presumed to have committed adultery or she has committed adultery would not be enough in itself to that we wouldn't have known on our own that would label her as Zona. So the pasuk tells me that no, that if she has committed adultery or she's a Sotah, so she's presumed to have done it, therefore she's usher to a Kohen, and V'chad L'Truma, and she's usher to Truma, even if she's like a Bas Kohen or whatever, she's usher for Truma. So you have 4 psukim, 3 nitma'az, and 1 vav. Rabbi Yishmael, for whatever reason, it doesn't spell out why you couldn't have learned one from. Well, we'll get to it a little bit, but it certainly doesn't spell out like why we couldn't just have assumed she's a zona. Rabbi Yishmael plus a krai ksive. It says 3 times because he doesn't learn the vav, so he only has 3 nitma'az. Chad l'bav, chad l'bo, chad l'truma. So the 3rd one is telling you truma. But that's why Rabbi Yishmael needs a Kal V'chomer. So we've answered all our questions. That Rabbi Akiva presumably learns out Kahuna from the Vav, and Rabbi Yishmael is basically saying back, I don't need your Vav, I'll learn it out from a Kal V'chomer. Okay? So what's this? V'chad Kahuna asa b'Kal V'chomer. And the Kal V'chomer is, if some women who can't marry Kohanim, a Grusha who's a Bas Kohen, can still eat Truma, a woman who can't eat Truma, that I learn out from the 3rd Nitma'ah, certainly should not be able to marry a Kohen. Okay, now the Gemara says like this. Rabbi Yishmael, now according to Rabbi Yishmael, that learns Truma and then makes a Kal V'chomer from Truma to Kahuna, Mimai the Itzrit Krali Truma, Kahuma Asu B'Kal V'chomer. How do you know that the pasuk tells you Truma, and once it tells you Truma, now we can make a Kal V'chomer. If she can't eat Truma, how much more so could she not marry a Kohen? Dilma, why don't I sort of say the opposite? First, the pasuk should first tell me the lesser chiddush. Kit derech lekahuna. Maybe the pasuk, the 3rd nitma'ah, is telling me she's asur lekohen if she committed adultery or she's a sotah and then the husband dies. And if all I know is that she's asur to a kohen, the truma sharia, truma would be permitted because I've already established there are women who are asur to marry a kohen who still can eat truma. Who is that? a grusha bas kohen, right? A grusha bas kohen can't marry a kohen and can eat truma. So maybe the third nit ma'ah tells me she's usher to a kohen, but I would not be, maybe, because she still would be, if she's the bas kohen, entitled to eat truma. Okay, which by the way makes sense, because if you just read the psukim, right? I mean, it's sort of what we're saying. The psukim make it clear that there are a lot of women who kohen can't marry. Isha, chalala, zonah, grusha, etc. All these women are usher to marry a kohen, but it's not so clear what type of a bas kohen can't eat truma. The psukim, it's only a bas kohen who marries out, who marries Yisrael. There's no sense that if a bas kohen did some forbidden act of sex, that would invalidate her from eating truma, right? So it's saying the same thing. Maybe this woman who commits adultery or is a sotah, maybe she's usher l'kohen, because we know a lot of women are usher l'kohen, but we don't know necessarily that she's usher b'truma. Okay, so how does he say the pasuk teaches me truma, and I'll make a kal v'chomer kohen? Maybe it should say usher l'kohen, and maybe she should be permitted to eat truma if she's a bas kohen. Okay, the truma sharia. So Amar Lecha, Rabbi Yishmael will say to you, Mistavra dumya debalu boel. No, I have the third nit me'ah. I want to make it's sort of similar to the nit me'ahs of the Baal and the Boel. In what way is it similar? Ma balu boel mechayim after manami mechayim. The Baal and Boel is that she's forbidden now to the husband and the suspected adulterer, even like while everybody is still alive. If you say she's usher in truma, that would also be now that everybody's alive. She's a bas kohen, she remains usher, she now becomes usher b'truma. If you said that the relevance is she can't marry a kohen, what's the only scenario where I would have had a havamina she could marry a kohen? She's married to this guy, she commits adultery. What's the only case where she could now marry another guy who's a kohen? If what happens to her husband? No. How does she become free now to marry a kohen? The husband has to die. He can't divorce her because then she's a grusha. Yeah. So the only scenario that I need to discuss if she can marry a kohen, her current husband dies. Okay, so he said, I don't want to assume the third nit me'ah is talking only in a scenario where her current husband dies. I want to assume the third nit me'ah is immediately relevant. Okay, and the case of immediately relevant, like Baal and Boel, would be truma. The relevance of Asr L'Kahuna would only be if the current husband dies. So ma balu bo mechaim after mechaim mafuki kahuna da misa. So once the third nit ma'ah tells me she's Asr B'truma, because that's what is immediately relevant, now I can make a kal v'chomer and say, oh, she's Asr B'truma? Then she's definitely going to be Asr L'Kohen. Okay? So Rabbi Yishmael gets the 4 by saying Baal, Boel, and Truma. Truma I know because it's immediately relevant. And then you use the kal v'chomer to get you Kohen. Rabbi Akiva says, I don't need your kal v'chomer. I have an extra vav, and that tells me Truma and Kohen.
So a woman is married to a Kohen, she commits adultery, she can't become a grusha.
She can become a grusha, but you don't need a pasuk to tell me she's usher. It's a fact. Right. Why do I need a pasuk to tell me a woman who committed adultery is usher to a Kohen? Of course she's usher to a Kohen. She's married. So what would be the scenario where I would need to tell me she's usher to a Kohen? Not if she got divorced from her husband. Then also, of course, she's usher to a Kohen. She's a divorcee. The only relevance of the halacha that a woman who commits adultery becomes usher to a Kohen is if her current husband dies.
Before you divorce her. Well, let me just understand. So while all this is going on, while she's in this status before having drunk the waters, the husband's supposed to support her, right? But
yes,
but he can't give her truma.
Right, correct.
Really cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. Actually, we haven't spoken about that. That's an excellent point about the financial implications of her status of being a sotah. One would imagine, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's true, they're not having sex, and you have to be mevaret. But there's been no indication that it would impact his financial obligations. Yeah, you're right, but she would be usher b'truma. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So Rabbi Akiva. Okay, we have the question about why does Rabbi Akiva not like the kal v'chomer of Rabbi Yishmael? It's a good kal v'chomer. So why does he need the extra vav? Why doesn't he say like Rabbi Yishmael? All right. Why doesn't he say? We'll see what Gemara says. Why didn't he say you get 3 nitvaas? The third one is talking about truma because that's mechayim, and then the kal v'chomer will apply it to even the iser kahuna. So Gemara says Rabbi Akiva will tell you do me the balabo leislei. Now I don't buy this idea that the third nitma has to be like the balabo and has to be immediately relevant. Let me say the third nitma is the lesser chiddush. The lesser chiddush is I'm not going to jump by saying the third nitma is truma. I'll say the third nitma is he doesn't allow the idea of the Balaboa comparison to say we can assume with line on the east day, or even if I said, you're right, if I only had Tzmini Tme'az, I would have said Issa Truma, because that's immediately relevant, and I could have had a Kavachomer that would have told me Asr L'Kahuna. But nevertheless, I'm going to use my Vav to tell it to me anyway. Nilsa Da'asi B'Kavachomer, Torah F'Kasav L'Kra, something I could learn out from a Kavachomer, Nish Kafir Lach, because the Torah wants to tell it to me explicitly. Okay, so in the end of the day, I'm going to learn it from the Vavs and whatever, and I'm not going to fundamentally say it's 3 plus a Kavachomer. I'm going to say it's 4 indications in the psukim.
But that's a huge assumption, is it not?
Yeah.
Like I can learn from a Kal V'chomer, so I'm not bothered by the fact that the pasuk also is telling me that. If you don't have a pasuk, you might well the Kal V'chomer if you have a pasuk.
No, they're not conflicting.
No,
Okay, he's saying it's not me that the pasuk is perfect. Well, look, in the way it's the nice counterpart to, the statement in the Gemara that says something like, Lamali cross Varahu. The way the Gemara is very shocking, radical in its assumption about, this is the whole idea of Torah Shabbal Peh, but in the assumption about how much our sort of own intellectual or rational, sort of understanding is of equal weight to that of what the Midrash Halacha or what the Pesukim are telling us. The fact that the Gemara can say, Lamali Kras Varu, why bother with a Pasuk? I could just figure it out on my own. Right. Actually, that's interesting. It's going to factor into what we're about to learn in a minute. Sort of says okay, so the human Svara has equal weight to something explicit in the Pasuk. Actually, there's some Gemaras that are even more radical and say, Shavik L'Krad Yu Dochik V'Uki Anafshe. Like he forgot, he puts the Pasuk aside. It's a difficult Pasuk. He's going to just explain it based on the way that makes sense. So it basically says that I think makes sense. I'm going to bracket certain difficult psukim or interpret them in a less than pshat way because I'm going to be dictated by what logically makes sense. So it really shows the power of reason and that role of Torah Shabbal Peh. That being said, it's not so that's the strength of that. That being said, it's not you take a position and therefore that's so powerful that there'll be the pasuk would be out of place to say something that I could learn out from my own svara. No, it's not so bad to have your own idea reaffirmed by to have the svara reaffirmed by an explicit statement in the Torah. So that's the flip side of it. The pasuk didn't have to say it. It would have been just as good to learn it from svara, but nevertheless, you don't have to say that it's a problem that the pasuk also said it.
But he's choosing it, or to learn it the extra, or that's just the way.
He's just saying. Now that's an interesting point. When you frame what your svara is, what your position is, are you saying I learn it from 3 psukim plus a kal v'chomer, and parenthetically, it is true the pasuk also indicates it, but my basic point is my kal v'chomer? Or you're saying no, my basic point is the extra vav, right? Which is what the Gemara seems to have framed it. Why did you need the extra vav? Why do you mean that's it? Couldn't you learn from a kal? Yeah, but I could have learned it from a kal v'chomer. But in the end, the pasuk didn't demand that of me. It gave me an extra vav. I don't know. Anyway, it's basically a statement of equivalency here. Okay, so now the Gemara moves on. Okay. Amarav Gidol Amarav. Doubling back to what we did at the end of yesterday, and I repeated the beginning of today. The idea that if there's tuma in a place of Rosh Hashanah, it still needs to be somebody who can be asked about it to say Sfeiko Tameh, and if there's nobody who can be asked about it, it's Sfeiko Tahor. That is not learned really from the Sotah category. That's learned somewhere else. The relevance of Davar Sheish Bodasli Sha'el. Okay? The Ein Bodasli Sha'el, or the relevance of whether somebody is around who could be asked or not, we don't really learn it from Sotah. We really learn it from the following pasuk. Okay, and flesh of a korban that touches something tamei shall not be eaten. So if you know it's habasar asher yiga, you're definite that it touched something tamei, then don't eat it. Hasafek tamei, safek tar. If there's a doubt, yachel, it can be eaten. Is it yachel or yochal? I think it's yachel, right, Michael? Yachel. What is it? Yachel. That's what I said. Okay. Hasafek tar lo yachel. Okay, okay, so that pasuk says that you have to definitely know it's tamei, sfeiko tahor. Ema seifa. Look at the end of the pasuk. The habasar, as far as meat of a korban is concerned, kol torah yochal basar. If you're Torah, you can eat it. So only if you know you're tahor, you can eat it. If you don't know, if it's a doubt, lo yochal. So what is it? The beginning of the pasuk says it's only a problem if you know it's tamei, and the end of the pasuk said you have to know you're tahor. So what's the story?
Wait, but it says one is the meat and the other is the person.
I understand. So you could have made that difference, but that's not what he's saying, right? Maybe you could have said if there's a doubt about the meat, it's feiko tamei. If it's a doubt about it's feiko tahor. If it's about the person, it's feiko tamei. Right. You could have said that because the person could always go to a mikvah. Right. Okay, but that's not what he's saying. But it's a good point. Here's what he's saying. In a way, it's a difference of the person, but not whether the person is tamei, but whether there's a person on the scene. So if all you have is habasar, you just have the meat and nothing else, and you don't know if something tamei touched the meat, and there's, but so you just have the object of the meat that's present on the scene, then sveiko tahor. It's not a problem unless it's definitely tamei. If there's a doubt, it's tahor. That's ein bodat lishael. If it's kol tahor yochal basar, you're on the scene, a person is on the scene, then if there's a doubt, you have to assume it's tamei. You have to know for certain that it's tahor. Okay, so if all you have is the meat on the scene, ein bodas lishael, sveiko tahor. If you have a person on the scene, kol tahor, then you have to sveiko tamei. You have to know that you're definitely what? Right? Well, we would have to add the Rishut HaYachid part from Sotah, which is what the Gemara is about to say. Okay, so this is where we learn this, but we don't learn this from Sotah.
I hate to hate this question, but when it says kacha yesh bo das, what does it mean? The piece of meat? You can't. You can't ask the korban.
No, bo in the scene, I guess, or something. In the circumstances.
Very concrete.
No, the circumstances. The circumstances, I believe, is yesh bo. Okay, so. Yeah, or whatever. The people or objects that are involved are the circumstances. Okay. The Itzrich to Rav Gidol Amarav, Itzrich Lemigmar Misotah. Now the Gemara is saying, actually, we need both drashot. We need the Vahabasar drasha and we need the Sotah model. Okay, the Midirav, Havi Amina, Ben B'Shus Yachid, Ben B'Shus Rabbi. Like Michael said, if you just had this about the meat, you would have said it private and public domain doesn't matter. It's just Yeshbo or Einbo. Okay, so it's Trich Lemigmar Misotah. So Sotah tells you, no, it's only like when they go into private. Is it a Sfeiko Tameh? The Misotah was just Misotah. Hava Amina Ad Gadas Nogea Umagia. By Sotah, there are two people who know what's going on, right? The man and the woman. So therefore, transferring it to a Tuma case, it'll only be applied if the toucher and the touchee had das. So it wouldn't apply to rodents and objects. It would only apply to if one Tamei person touched a Torah person. And maybe that would be the only time we would say Sveika Torah. That would be most similar to Sotah. So Tzricha, so therefore this is teaching you, no, it doesn't require both parties to know. It just requires somebody there to know what's going on.
This is more of a thought experiment. But like, let's say you had like a video camera. You can't ask the rodent. But it's like recorded.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's very formalistic, these halachas of Safek Tuma. Okay, now we go back to the Mishnah. And interestingly, we're going to stay on the Tuma discussion, not because of Sotah, but because of the Bo B'Yom Darsh Rabbi Akiva, right? We had a series of on that day Rabbi Akiva. So and the case in the Mishnah, the first case was this idea about how do we know that that food can make that you can turn something, that food can become tamei to the third degree derivation, a shlishi. So just to remind you, Rabbi Akiva learns from the pasuk, yes, it is by Klicheres, that says what is it? Say the whole pasuk.
It's quoted Mishnah.
So basically, klicheres is a rishon. There was a sheretz and a klicheres that made it into a rishon. Sheretz is an av. Anything in the klicheres is a sheni, okay, because it always goes down 1 degree. And it says anything in the klicheres will be yitma, shall become tamei, which means, okay, a sheni. But Rabbi Akiva's drush is yitamei will have the ability to make yet another thing tamei, to turn it into a shlishi. To which the Gemara, who was it that responded? Migla afar me'anecha. Was it nice line?
I'm sure.
Migla afar me'anecha Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, if who would take the dust out of your eyes, presumably he was dead. So wake you up out of the grave and shake the dust out of your eyes, because you said we only know the idea of a shlishi betruma from a kavah chomer, and Rabbi Akiva and the later generation would question here, by the way, very much tying it back to our previous discussion about Kal V'chomer versus Pasuk. Since we only know it from a Kal V'chomer, a later generation might question the idea of a Shlishi B'Truma, because if it's learned out from Svara, you can raise a counter Svara. And Rabbi Akiva shows that it's based on a Pasuk. Okay, so that was the Mishnah. Again, very interesting, because we just had that. Kal V'chomer, Pasuk, and here actually it's saying it's better that it's a Pasuk, then the Svara can't be challenged. Okay, so anyway, that's the idea. So now what we're going to do is focus on the idea that food can become a Shlishi L'Truma. Okay, so let's take a look. Bo b'yom darsh Rabbi Akiva, v'kol kli cheres. Le'acher de'ein lo. Since Rabbi Yehoshua says, ein lo mikra mina pasuk, mina Torah, right? You said that the idea of shlishi doesn't have a basis in the psukim, and Rabbi Akiva showed it had a basis in the psukim. So the Gemara is saying, I already told you the idea of the Kal V'chomer, that wasn't in the Mishnah. If there's no basis in the psukim, lama tameh, why before Rabbi Akiva were we assuming that food could become a shlishi l'truma, that it was tameh, if there was no pasuk prior to Rabbi Akiva? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, mina Torah eno. Yes, it's not a pasuk that tells you that it's tameh, but I mean din Kal V'chomer yeshlo. We assumed that there was an idea of a shlishi based on a Kal V'chomer, at least a shlishi for truma. Okay, and now we're going to spend the rest of the day figuring out these Kal V'chomers. Okay, now here's the Kal V'chomer. Yom shemuter b'chulin pasal b'truma. A guy who goes to the mikvah and he's waiting for nightfall to be poor. Okay, uvah shemesh v'taher v'kadashim kilach mohu. Right. So when the sun sets, he's tahor, and then he can eat from the kadashim, which includes truma. That's called Tivul Yom. He was tovel today, but it's still the day that he was tovel. It hasn't been sunset, and he's asur b'truma. Okay, so that's the idea. So Umal Tvul Yom shemuter b'chulin, he can eat non-sanctified things, and presumably he would not be considered tamei if he touched non-sanctified things. Possible truma. Nevertheless, he can't eat truma, and the presumption is, right, he can't eat truma, and that if he touches truma, he makes it tamei, he defiles it. Okay, so that's a Tvul Yom. Kikar sheni shepasul b'chulin, a second loaf of bread, which we know does become tamei, even if it's chulin. So einu din sheyasa shlishi b'truma. How much more so should it be able to make another loaf of bread that it touches that's truma tamei? Now, there's obviously a little bit of a difference here, right? Because this guy, right, like what's the Kal V'chomer? Like this guy, he is not the food that's that's a sheni, meaning the guy is somebody who he is tahor, is allowed to touch chulin, is not allowed to eat truma, and the comparison is, and therefore food that is itself tamei vis-a-vis chulin must make a problem when it touches truma. Am I not being clear? Why? Well, that's the point. The point is that maybe I'm not being clear about what's unclear, maybe. But the point is like this: the structurally it would be the same if you would say the following. If you would say object X is tahor, but it still makes truma tamei. So object Y that is tamei, how much more so should it make truma tamei? That would be a Kal V'chomer, right? That wouldn't be a Kal V'chomer. Don't worry about the Tvul Yom. Let's talk about what the structure, what the structure of the Kal V'chomer should look like. Okay, we want to say that this object, this loaf of bread that is a sheni for chulin, should certainly be able to make truma tamei. So the Kal V'chomer would be if you would have an object that would not be tamei for chulin, would be considered tahor vis-a-vis chulin, and it would make truma tamei. How much more so an object that is tamei for chulin should be able to make truma tamei?
I just didn't understand how the Tivul Yom.
Okay, I'm getting there. I'm saying that's what it should look like, right? If you wanted to make a Kal V'chomer, you'd have to take an object that is tahor for chulin to make truma tamei. How much more so an object that's tamei for chulin should make truma tamei? The problem is that it's Tvul Yom. He's not exactly an object of chulin that's tahor. He's a person that's allowed to eat chulin. Okay, so but we're sort of glossing over that.
It's a gray area.
Well, we're not talking about suffix. The point is there's a difference between the object bore, okay, the object of the food, right? I wish I had a whiteboard here. Yeah, the object of the food. If this object, if we were to say this object okay, it's chulin and it's tahor, and nevertheless, if it touches truma, it makes it tamei. Then kavachomer, another object, if it's chulin, it's tamei. If it touches truma, it makes it tamei. So we want to make. The problem is that this object is not an object of a person, and we're not saying the point is that he's tahor. We're saying if he's allowed to eat chulin, and nevertheless he's not allowed to eat. He's not allowed to touch truma or eat truma. This thing, which is tamei as chulin, how much more so should it make truma tamei? So it's like they are not. It's not a clean kal v'chomer.
I just want to point out in wake of the sugi, just like where it came from, it's comparing a person to a loaf of bread.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
It's the exact same thing, and
like the sotah and the meat and whatever.
Shock here is it's a thing that's like you could has consciousness and a thing that doesn't have consciousness.
Right.
And here we've got
that's a very good point. Yeah.
Does a tivul yom have essentially the status of a sheni b'tuma?
Yes, and that's part of what the kal v'chomer is based on, but it's only like by analogy because it's most of the halachas are similar, but he's not actually considered a sheni. He's considered a tivul yom. So anyway, let's acknowledge that this is a little bit, the analogy is a little weak, but that's the argument. So let's read it again. A little weak. Okay. Don't think about it for too long. Okay. Umar tvul yom shemuter b'chulin. A tvul yom can eat chulin. Posel b'truma, he invalidates truma. Kikar sheni shepasel b'chulin, a loaf of bread which as chulin is tamei. How much more so? Eino din sheyaser shlishi b'truma. How much more so if this itself is intrinsically tamei? Okay, a tvul yom isn't really fully tamei. He's just got some residual tuma. Maybe say it that way. A tvul yom just has some residual tuma, and nevertheless he makes a problem for truma. A kikar sheni, which is really tamei, maybe that's a nicer way of thinking about it. Okay, so tvul yom has residual tuma, and he makes truma a problem. A kikar sheni, which has real tuma. How much more so should it pass its truma on to truma? Okay, so that's the kal v'chomer. 1 minute, that could be challenged. So 1 minute. I said that the tvul yom is weaker because it's residual. It might be only residual, but it's residual starting from something weightier. The guy himself was, let's say, an avatuma. Let's say he was a balkari or whatever he was, or let's say he directly touched a sheretz. No, if he directly touched a sheretz, he'd be a rishon. He got it directly from an av. Okay, fine. Don't even have to go that far. He touched a sheretz, so he got his tuma from an av. He started as an av or rishon. So it might only be residual, but it started higher. As opposed to this loaf of bread, it started as a sheni. So yes, maybe the residual tuma of a balkari is stronger than the at the outset tuma of a sheni. Okay, that's why he's a problem for truma. It would not be true by something that started its life as a sheni. And the says fine. Tesi mitvul yom desheretz. Okay, actually no. So I jumped ahead. So the avatuma he would be, let's say, have been a balkari. He started as an avatuma. So the says, I'll give you a tvul yom that has residual that didn't start as an av. He touched a sheretz. He started as a rishon. Okay, so if the residual tuma of a rishon can be a problem for truma, how much more so should real sheni l'tuma be a problem for avatuma? Right. Okay, so that's the argument.
They corrected
right?
that. They corrected that piece.
Right. Okay, so we've got a guy, he touched a sheretz, he's a rishon, he went to the mikvah, so he has only residual tumah from a rishon, and if that's powerful enough to make to be a problem for truma, how much more so is something that is really tamei, even if it's only tamei as a sheni. Now, I think you might have made a difference, but let's see what the Gemara says. Tvul yom desheretz. No, ma'u tvul yom desheretz shekain b'mino afatuma. No, even in the case of tvul yom b'sheret, 1 minute. 1 minute. Let me just double check Rashi. Meaning, it's true that he only touched a sheretz, but in theory, a person can be a rishon, right? It's true right now, he started his life, I'm sorry, in theory, a person can be I'm sorry, hold on, an av, 1 minute, right. Right. In theory, a person could be an av, exactly. Whereas food can never be an av. Food can, even if food were to touch a mace, the way a person becomes an av, if it's not something that happens to him himself, like he becomes a zav or a mitzora, the way a person becomes an av is he touches a mace. Okay, but food, even if food touches a mace, it never becomes an av. So we're basically still saying you cannot assume that the residual tumah of a person is weaker than the sheni of food. Number one, that person's tumah might have started at a much higher level. Number two, even if it didn't start at a higher level, tumah of persons might by its very nature be weightier than tumah of foods, because in theory, people can become avatumas. So therefore, maybe there's something that's more weighty about his tumah, and you can't make a kal v'chomer from the residual tumah of a person to the sheni of food.
Food touches
a mace. Yeah, it becomes a rishon. It does not become an av. If you read Rashi, he says, like about 4 lines down in the narrow lines, Tomer ba'ochel she'ena nasa avatuma filu ayidei mace. etc. Okay, so that's it does not become an av. Yes.
Nevela is just a rishon?
No, it is an av, but it's not. It's true. I mean, it's not exactly food. It's considered an avela. It's not fit for being eaten and so on. I mean, it's fit for a non-Jew to eat, etc. But that's not also. That's not also like becoming tamei from the outside. We're talking about tumah contracted from the outside, not about things' intrinsic identity. Okay. So again, the argument is that if a guy with residual tumah invalidates truma, certainly something that was a sheni. And the Gemara says, no, residual tumah of a person might be weightier. A, it might have started at a higher level, and B, the tumah of people might be intrinsically weightier than the tumah of food.
Even if it didn't start from the source, it is thicker or weightier or more powerful.
Exactly. Now, by the way, you know this Gemara is complicated because there's not one Tosfos on it, and it's all Rashi on both sides of the page.
I wonder I couldn't find that Rashi.
The Rashi, right? The Rashi starts on the outside margin, not the inside margin.
I knew you were going to tell us.
No, right now. Okay. No, at least there, it's in a category of things that could be very weighty. So again, residual tumah of a tvul yom might be weightier than the tumah sheni of food. So the word says kli cheres yochiach. Wait. I can prove it from a kli cheres. What can I prove from a kli cheres? That kli cheres can also not become an avatuma like food, and I know that a kli cheres can make truma puzzle. Now, of course, it's a little funny because I only know kli cheres can make truma puzzle when the kli cheres is a rishon. Okay, but here what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tzar hashava. I know a person with residual tuma, a tvul yom, okay, can make truma problem. I know that a kli cheres that is a rishon can never become an av. I know that can make truma problems. So I'm going to learn from the case of the person that something that is a sheni can invalidate truma. You'll say, well, wait, you can't learn from a person. A person could, in theory, be even an av. I'll say, okay, I'll learn from kli cheres. You'll tell me, wait, you can't, because that also can't be an av, and it can make truma problem. But a kli cheres, we're not dealing with residual tumah. Guys, we're dealing with a risha. Okay, I'll go back to the person who is the case of residual tumah.
Is till shlishi, so you understand.
But we're learning that out. But we're learning. But we only know that a kli cheres. The Torah only discusses kli cheres as an av. Okay, kli cheres isn't a sheni. Only food can be a sheni. Okay, so basically, I really need a whiteboard. But basically, what I've got is I've got a kli cheres. I've got a kli cheres. Yeah, we're right on that wall over there. I love that. I got a kli cheres, which is a rishon. Okay, which can never be an av, but it can make truma problem. Okay, but that's not helpful. I want to learn that a sheni can make truma problem. Okay, so I'll learn from the case of the person with residual truma. That's very weak. That's only residual. Presumably, it's even weaker than a sheni, and that can make truma problem. But I can't learn from a person because a person could, in theory, could even be an av. Okay, well, a kli cheres can't be an av. But you can't learn from a kli cheres because that's starting with rishon tuma, not residual, from a person. So I'll combine the two, and I got a person with residual tuma can make truma a problem, and a klicheres that's a rishon can make truma a problem. So the tzar hashaveh is that anything with that's even like at a sheni level can somehow, which is comparable to the residual, even a sheni level can make truma a problem, even if it doesn't have the ability to ever itself become an av. Yes. Did you get all of that?
Yeah. The person can become tahor, and in fact, the civil yom will become tahor with no action.
Right.
Taking, but the parish can never become tahor once it becomes tahor.
Okay, so you're saying that would make it weightier, maybe, and therefore not food. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Let's see what the Gemara says. You're right. You're right. Maybe I need to start doing that. You're right. I'll tell them if they don't get that elevator fixed, we're going to start writing on the windows. Really? Okay, great.
You think this kids some years ago they had a plastic that the kids would put over the television so they could write on it.
Okay.
No, but it's a very good.
All right. I see you guys are just trying to look to distract yourselves from this Gemara. Let's go on. Okay, so it says, okay. So the Gemara says, so we learned it out. So from a tzad hashaveh between Tvul Yom and Klicheres, that things can become that truma can become a shlishi. No, Mal Klicheres. Might want to say that, Charlie want to say that Klicheres you can't be tar mitar b'mikvah. But let's see what it says. Mal Klicheres shekein mitami miaviro.
So it's more chomer.
Klicheres is more chomer, that it makes things tummy even not through touch. It could have said Mal Klicheres that we're talking about a rishon and not about a sheni. But anyway, the Gemara says Tvul Yom ruchiach. Okay, but a Tvul Yom has to be through touch. So v'chozer hadin, and it goes back and forth. Lo reizek reizev, lo reizek reizeh. Each one's distinctive characteristics are not found in the other one. Hatzar hashaveh shebehen, the common denominator between the two of them, shemutar and b'chulin, they themselves are, it's a level of tum'ah that would not be a problem by chulin. Okay, it's actually interesting. The klicheres actually, I don't know what mutar and b'chulin means, because the klicheres actually does make chulin into a sheni. Let me see what Rashi says about that. 1 minute. Ma'atzar hashaveh shemutamin tvul yom ikri tamei. Oh yeah, Rashi takes out the Girsa Shemutar B'chulin because he says it doesn't make any sense. Okay, because the Klicheres actually does make Chulin into a Sheni. Rashi instead has Rashi's Tzad HaShavah Shebehen. He has the Girsa is Shemitamin. Okay, their Tzad HaShavah is they transfer Tumah. Okay, a Klicheres makes is a Rishon and makes food into a Sheni, and a Tvul Yom makes the Truma that he touches invalid. So both of these two are mitamim, opposed to truma, and create a problem with truma. Kol shkein kikosheni, so much more so kikosheni, which is, well, we don't know it's mitama yet, but we know it is tamei. Suppose so b'chulin, that if it's chulin, it's already invalid. That it's a sheni of chulin is a problem. Suppose so b'truma, how much more so should it invalidate truma? So there's some tzad hashaveh, which fundamentally we're learning it out from the residual tuma of a tvul yom that makes chulin a problem. But there are things that make that maybe make it more chomer than the food. The fact that it's residual and it might have started at a higher level. The fact that it's a person. So we sort of discount those more chomer things by the comparison to the klicheres. Okay, of course the klicheres is a rishon, not a sheni. But bottom line is we're mostly learning from the tvul yom, who has only residual truma and tuma, and is a problem for truma. That certainly for a sheni, for food that's a sheni, that's real tuma, will it make a problem for truma? Yes. I'm sorry. No, it's not a shove is when the kal v'chomer fails. So it actually.
But yeah, I'm trying to remember. Is it like is it based on the kal v'chomer logic?
Yeah, the way you usually get to a tzad hashaveh is you try to say, let's learn it from X. Now, when we want to start by learning it from X, because let's learn it as a kal v'chomer from X, or let's learn it from X as a binyanav, as a paradigm. Okay, but you want to start by learning it from X, and then wait, you can't necessarily learn it from X, whether it's a kal v'chomer or whatever, because of this weakness. Yeah, we start with kal v'chomer. It often starts, actually, you find a lot in the Midrash Halacha. The Midrash Halacha says, V'lo dinhu. which often introduces a kal v'chomer. If he's going to say it by here, he should say no, because you could say it's not exactly the same. Okay, the choser hadin. The phrase of choser hadin starts with halo dinhu. So choser hadin is you're taking this logical derivation and you're jumping back and forth and discounting the counter arguments until you get to this tzad hashava. Yeah.
So we've lost our kal v'chomer.
Yeah, so it's really no longer kal v'chomer. It's really more of a tzad hashava, which is a weak, which is an argument more by like analogy than by kal v'chomer, right, or by
The our first category is no longer kal because
we've pointed out some chomer aspects. Exactly, higher level that it's possible to become an avatuma.
It makes the whole tamei, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That it doesn't. Which is what made it
no, it is true that a tful yom does not make chulin tamei, but a tful yom still might be weightier because his tumah started at a higher level and he himself could, in theory, become an av and so on. So the fact that a tful yom has the ability to make truma a problem doesn't prove that food has the ability to make truma a problem.
Right. I'm just because if we go by Rashi's where we change it from
mitamei.
Right.
Right.
So then if it's the whole.
Oh yeah, Rashi says mitamei. When Rashi says mitamim, right? I'm sorry. I think I misstated it. When Rashi says mitamim, he doesn't make other things tamei. You're right, because that's really the whole thing that's up for the question. He really says it means it's just called tamei. A tvul yom is called tamei. Klicheres is called tamei, and they create problems for truma. So certainly a kikar sheni is called tamei to make a problem for truma. Right. So you're right. It's really so.
It's just.
They're called tamei, right? So for Rashi, at the end of the day, the tzad hashava is that a tful yom and a kli cheres are called tamei, and they make truma a problem. So anything that's called tamei, which would include ochel sheni, should make truma a problem. Yeah.
I was just going to, it's a very powerful. They changed the hermeneutic. They want to come up with the same thing.
Well, that happens very, very common. We start with the kal v'chomer, we end up with the tzad hashava. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Okay, so let's read it again. Lo reizeh tzad hashava shebehen she. We'll write, instead of mutar and bechulin, we'll read shemitamim. There's the things that are called tamei, uposim truma, and they invalidate truma. Kol shekain. It's interesting that says kol shekain because once it's a kal v'chomer. Okay, kikar sheni, afani avi is rather more than the kol shekain. Similarly, the kikar sheni sheposim bechulin, or again Rashi would say shemitame. It's called tamei to posim truma. Okay, so that's tzad hashava. The door acher parech. Now he said that was until Rabbi Akiva came along. We only had a drasha. The problem with a drasha is that a logical derivation is that another generation could challenge it. What will the other generation say? No. Now this tzad chamor is actually it's the challenge to any tzad hashava. Okay, because if you have to think about it, there's a real problem with like a tzad hashava. Right? Here's the problem with the tzad hashava. The tzad hashava is like I've got these two guys that are both like basketball superstars. So this guy is 7 feet tall, and this other guy is like super fast. So the tzad hashava shebehen is that they're guys. So I'll bring any guy who will be a basketball superstar, okay? Because it's obviously not about height, because this other guy isn't high. It's obviously not about speed, because this other guy isn't fast. So obviously, it's just about being a guy in a uniform that makes you a basketball superstar. Okay, so obviously that's a problem with every tzad hashava, is that maybe it is the distinctive characteristics, and there's more than one distinctive characteristics that can lead to the halacha. Okay, so that's the response of a tzad chamor. Tzad chamor says you can't do a tzad hashava because maybe each thing's distinctive characteristic is what the problem is that that's a really good response, but then you might as well just throw out every single tzad hashava in the shas. So Tosfos tries to sometimes explain that when we challenge tzad hashava, we're actually finding something similar of the two distinctive characteristics, even though it's very vague and abstract. Anyway, but that's the point. The point is, at the end of the day, you learned it out from a tzad hashava. But okay, even if it's a tzad hashava, that's not a strong derivation. Each one of those things had something distinctive going for it that could explain its power. And food that's a sheni doesn't have those distinctive characteristics, so maybe food that's a sheni cannot pass a truma. Okay? And therefore, thank you, Rabbi Akiva, that now you've given us a drasha, so we're saved so now we can actually learn out the idea of a shlishi for truma from the pasuk, and we don't have to do it based on this tzad hashava.
So, what is it again? This chamor part in this particular instance.
One of them, the klicheres, is mitamim yaviro, and the tful yom either starts with a high level of tuma, or he himself could become an av. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, tzad chomer lo parich. And Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai wasn't bothered with that because, if you bothered with the tzad chomer, you'll never do a tzad hashav in your life. So he wasn't bothered. But Rabbi Yeshua said, thank God, at least now we got a pasuk. It saves us from any challenge. Okay. Tanya, that was the idea of how we know shlishi betruma. Now, as long as we're on this fun topic, we're going to discuss how do we know the idea that kodshim can become a revi. Truma can be a shlishi, and kodshim can be puzzled when they touch even when they touch a shlishi. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Time return to Bryce. I'm Rabbi Yossi. Minayin lerevi b'kodesh apostle. So we know now shlishi about a truma. How do we know about a revi by kodesh, by like korbanot? V'dinhu, it's kal v'chomer. Uma mechusa kippurim. Now we started learning out the idea of tvul yom of shlishi b'truma from the fact that a tvul yom can't eat truma. Okay, but there's one level down from a tvul yom, one level even more residual. What's even more residual than a tvul yom? Mechusa kippurim. Somebody that his tahara process ends not when the sun sets, but when he brings a korban the next morning. Okay, like a zav or a yoledet. They bring a korban the next morning. So it's sunset. They're no longer tvul yom, but they are awaiting their korban, mechusa kippurim, and kippurim, and only once they bring their korban are they totally tahor. What's their status after the sunset before their korban is brought? That they cannot eat korbanot. They're aser b'kodshim. So the same way residual tumah of a tvul yom teaches me that a sheni makes a shlishi by truma, because the assumption that sheni would be at least as powerful as residual tumah of the tvul yom. So the residual tumah after sunset of mechusa kippurim is assumed to be a shlishi of tumah, is assumed to be at least as weighty as that. So the guy who's waiting to eat korbanot, so presumably something that's a shlishi, which is really tameh, not just residual, right? Certainly that should create a problem and should be metame, something that's a korban. It's a very parallel argument, okay? It presumes these analogies, but once you presume those analogies, if it's full yom can't eat truma, a sheni can't touch truma. If the mechusa kippurim can't eat korbanos, a shlishi can't touch korbanot. Okay? Minayin le'ervini b'kodesh hapasul v'dinhu. So a guy who's awaiting his korban can eat truma. Pasul b'kodesh can't eat korbanot. So shlishi shapasul truma. Shlishi, that is really a level of truma that invalidates truma. And so if something was truma, it's been invalidated because it touched shlishi. How much more so should it have the power that it should invalidate a korban if it touches a korban? Okay, so something that's a shlishi betruma should be able to invalidate a korban.
What are we saying, that if truma touches a shlishi, it's invalidated?
No, that's the problem with the analogy. No, right. If truma itself is a shlishi, it became invalidated. Yeah. You're going to tell me that the comparison is not exact. Right. I agree. That's what we said at the beginning. Okay, you just have to accept it. The analogy is, if a guy who's a shlishi, not a shlishi, if a guy who's a mechusa kippurim can eat truma and he has the power to invalidate korban, so truma, which as a shlishi has become invalidated because it was a shlishi, should certainly be able to invalidate a korban. It's not an exact analogy, but that's the argument. Okay, right? Exactly. Okay. So v'lamadnu shlishi l'kodesh min Torah. Now we know that something that is a shlishi, that's a korban, is from the Torah. We know that invalidates korbanot. We didn't know it invalidated truma, but we know it invalidates korbanot. How we know that shlishi that if a korban is a shlishi, it's invalid, we'll see in a minute. But we already know from the Torah that if a korban is a shlishi, it's invalid. For revi mikal v'chomer, and now we learned the idea that even if it's a korban that's a revi, that we learn from a kal v'chomer, the kal v'chomer we just put out there. Shlishi l'kodesh min Torah minalan. Where do we know in the Torah that if a korban is a shlishi, it's invalid? Ichsiv v'abasar sheyiga b'chol tamei lo yeachel. So the meat that touches anything tamei cannot be eaten, and that's korban meat. Now, what's tamei? Milo askina dunaga b'sheni. Remember, what did the Torah call tamei? The Torah called the food that fell into the klicheres tamei, right? And that food was only a sheni. The klicheres, the sheretz made the klicheres from shown food that fell tamei, yitma. So this food that is tamei now tells me anything tamei, including food that's a sheni that touches a korban, invalidates the korban. So the psukim make it clear that if a korban, if it becomes a shlishi, is invalid. Okay, Milo Askina Dinaga B'Sheni. It's a Sheni. Already from the Psukim that if a korban is a shlishi, it's invalid. Revi mikavachomer k'amrin, and we learned out that a revi is invalid if it, from a kavachomer, that if it's food and can't eat a korban, and that's very residual. How much more so if something is a shlishi and it touches a korban, should it invalidate? Okay, Amar of Yochanan. So that seems like a reasonable drush. I mean, once you buy in the analogy of people to the food, to the object, it seems reasonable. Amar of Yochanan. Tam Rebbe Eini Yodea. I don't know what Rabbi Yossi is talking about. Rabbi is like an honorific, right? I don't know what Rabbi Yossi is talking about. Mahu. There's an immediate counterexample. What's the immediate counterexample? How about food that a tvul yom touched? Okay, now what's that halacha? Sheposable truma ve'ena oser revi b'kodesh. That thing invalidates truma, but it does not invalidate kodesh. Meaning that if you actually have, okay, what's a shlishi? A shlishi is food that touched the sheni, right? Okay, so
Truma that touched
truma that touched the sheni. I really need a whiteboard. Okay, but it's truma that touched the sheni. Now we have analogized a tvul yom to a sheni, correct? That was our whole previous drasha. Now, so if you have food that touched a sheni, it's a shlishi. Food. What would be about food that touched a tvul yom? What would that status be? Okay, if you want to argue that a shlishi of truma should invalidate korbanot, right? A shlishi of truma should invalidate korbanot, because you want to analogize it from a tvul yom who then became a mechusik kippurim, and he can invalidate korbanot. But 1 minute. But then logically, the food touched by a tvul yom should also be able to invalidate korbanot, right? You've got this line, which is the foods, and this line, which is the people. Person shown goes to them. Oh, forget it.
I'm following.
I know you're following, but we have to do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll make sure we have some over there or something. Or maybe I'll draw up some diagram. Anyway, we'll continue here tomorrow. To be continued.